suave. Suena el bongo. Hazme un tumbao que el ritmo lo pongo yo.
Pops and the Rican.
Look at this dude. Look at the top of his head. Look at his lips.
Pops and the Rican.
We got rolling there?
Yep.
All right.
Good.
So, well, hey everybody, it's the Pops and the Rican show,
Yep.
and to my knowledge, I'm still Pops.
Yep, and I'm the Rican.
And that makes
Wow.
this the Pops and the Rican
show.
Yeah.
Wait, how does that work again?
Do you need a scorecard?
I think I do.
I mean,
Too many variables here today, people.
so hey, today though we are thrilled.
Yes.
Because we have a guest who has come into Gutty's Comedy Club in Greenwood and
survive.
And survived.
had a
I'm
fan.
still alive. Help me get out.
He's just.
I mean, it's great to be here.
He's just making that up, otherwise the muzzle goes back on. Anyway, no, he had a great show last night. We got
Yes.
another show tonight. But by the time you're watching this, those shows have ended.
already done.
So,
And the cops will have come, and
And
that'll
we're done.
be it.
We're done. It's
You're
the last
welcome.
show.
You're welcome, Greenwood.
but other than that, our guest is the one and only Paul Aldrich.
Paul?
And,
Yes.
Paul is, if you haven't seen him, shame on you. You better get online,
get online
and
and
do a
check
search
it out.
and watch all of his videos,
Yeah.
and then sing all the songs over and over
Get in your spirit.
until
They
you annoy
can
me.
find me on the World Wide Web.
Oh, is that
You know,
what that
the
is?
kids are watching that thing today.
Check it out. Yeah, in the interwebs.
Yes.
The World Wide Web. Going to be big, I believe.
He's
think so.
he's even on some of that socialized media.
Yeah, the socialized media
But
works.
anyway,
I'm not in favor of socialist media, by the way. I
Well,
think that's just wrong. But that's so it's
Take it back.
no politics today. I said sorry, my bad.
I understand.
Okay.
You know, it seems like every show recently. We've got some comedian that rolls into town and then brings up some type of politics.
Something.
Like during our grand opening
It's just,
show.
it happens.
During our grand opening
Yeah,
show,
yeah.
Dave the King Wilson, who also plays Santa Claus during the holidays.
Really?
And he does a bit where he's like, Santa's real, and if people say, that he's not, you tell them, well, there are some people, some adults actually, that believe in socialism. And even Santa Claus works at least one day a year. So now Dave hit it last week, and now you're up here.
Here we go.
So,
There you go.
We'll go ahead and see.
That's the end of the politics for
That's
today.
it.
You're welcome,
That
America.
was a segment right there. We're good.
We'll see
On to
what
the next
happens with our next show.
Yeah.
It's nice having Paul on.
Thank you.
So, Paul, get us started. Tell us a little bit about how you got started in the whole world of comedy. Where,
Yeah.
where'd you get your beginnings? Where'd you gnaw the comedy bone and all that?
Well, I guess I was a fan of comedy, just watching people on television, talk shows, that kind of thing, listening to records as a kid. I always had kind of a sense of humor. That's not what my teachers called it.
Right.
Or my Sunday school teachers for that matter.
Right,
But yeah, so just, you always just had a comment for everything, so there was some sort of destiny involved. But I really got my start through an organization called Young Life. I grew up in church as a kid, but got involved with Young Life, which is a ministry to teenagers. And that's where I saw people, they were singing songs and they were doing skits and they had heart with what they were doing, and that just connected with me. So I ended up becoming a volunteer Young Life leader when I was in college. And that's where I started, becoming a song leader. I'd been playing guitar for several years and leading skits myself, and then turn the corner and just share a message of the gospel. And so that was kind of where I cut my teeth, but it was really working with youth that I learned how to capture a crowd's attention and try to take them somewhere. And in college, I got together with a friend of mine that played guitar, and we started leading songs at camp. So we were song leaders, and then we would take Christian cover songs of the day and do little concerts, and then eventually started writing some of our own music. And then eventually he became a full-time youth pastor, and I went out on my own, and that's when I was still really a song leader who was funny, as opposed to, I didn't really have much of an act, but I was working with some very funny speaker comedians, Ken Davis, there was a guy in California named Pat Hurley, and I would watch what these guys did comedically. I mean, just great, hilarious stand-up comedy, and then they would turn the corner and just share the heart of God with people. It's like, oh man, I love that combo as an individual sort of doing what I did in Young Life as a group.
Yeah.
They were doing it as an individual. And so I kind of started doing my musical version of what they would do, you know, songs about parents and kids and growing, you know, just whatever, you know, was going on at that time with the audience. So it was mainly youth events at that time in my life. So I did a lot of youth stuff, song leader / comedy boy, and then eventually got a body of material where I became a comedian, not just a song leader who was humorous, but you know, a funny guy who started doing concerts as opposed to kind of, you know, leading songs and stuff. And so that grew over a period of time, and mainly youth stuff back in those days, and mainly on the West Coast and California and such. And then you sort of, just by word of mouth, people find out you do a youth conference, and then that leads you to a new denomination that has a conference in Missouri and this and that. So that grew just over a period of time. And then at some place you start going beyond the youth world, and you get older and you lose your hair, and you start working for people of all ages. And so I went from doing youth events to doing, you know, father-son events and family events and whatever. And so that's kind of the basic, quick little, you know, overview of how things kind of began and got moving forward.
That's really cool. And what I want to ask is, since you touched on the subject of, you know, like Christian comedy, or even the subject of clean comedy, we're noticing here in Greenwood that we're having a lot of conversation between comics who don't do clean versus, you know, clean comedy. So it's like, if you can explain a little bit what your take is on how to work clean and the importance of working clean versus, you know, just taking the easy route and just...
Yeah, well, it was never a conflict for me, because right from the start I was coming from a ministry standpoint and working to the comedy. So it wasn't like I had to, I got to change my act or whatever. Although in every context you have to learn where the boundaries are, because there's church clean and there's clean, you know, and then there's anything goes, or even there it's like, there's some things that you got to decide, like we, you know, joking about political, but you got to decide, you know, do you want to rant on one thing and really offend a whole portion and have them never be your fans, or do you try to do something down the middle? You have to decide what is true to your soul and what you want to do. So the clean thing was never an issue, and I think this is my personal opinion. I think people that work hard to do it clean will be have bigger careers because they aren't slamming doors. If they're funny and clean, they can work everywhere. If they're funny and dirty, they can't work everywhere.
Wow, that's interesting. See,
and if they're not funny, they'll never work.
Well, hopefully, unless they have a really good website, and then they get to work there once.
I mean, because that has been just a hot topic, especially when Gutty's launched. You know, it was like, well, you're not really a real comedy club, and we'll wait till a real comedy club comes to the city. And it's like, well, what do you consider a real comedy club? Is it because we're not, you know, dark and blue, but we're offering, you know, comedy. So comedy, you know, it's almost like it's very subjective. We know that, but at the same time, there's more to doing clean, more opportunity. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
your reach will go farther.
Absolutely.
If you can work that, and that's kind of what we're trying to relay here, especially in the comedy scene, is that we're not saying we're better. We're just saying it's an option to get you more opportunity for your career if you're serious about it.
Yeah.
And we're providing something that isn't specifically being provided for the market.
Right.
Because Indianapolis has 3 solid clubs.
They do, yeah.
That are
that have been established.
You know,
yeah.
And even in those clubs, you talk about there are certain clubs that everything goes, and then there's some, Ruth Ann at Crackers has some guidelines. There are certain things she doesn't want said from her stage.
Yeah.
And so there are some parameters there,
Yeah.
So there are different levels of
Right.
what the management is willing to allow to happen from their stage.
Yeah.
And so we're just trying to provide something that isn't being done through those clubs, so that if a family wants to go out and have,
Exactly. And I personally don't have a problem with, I understand comics that, they live in a world where cursing and all that's kind of normal. And I'm not going to tell that guy if it isn't a concern for him, I'm not going to, oh man, you got to make it a concern. You can be true to yourself as long as they aren't using the foul language as a crutch. It's just like, oh, I can tell a joke, or if I can drop an F-bomb at the end of the joke, then people will get,
shock
a
value,
little just that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, if that's all it is, then you're selling yourself short. But there's some people who use foul language and are hilarious and are great artists.
Right.
And I might go see them. I might not book them at my church.
Right, exactly.
But I might go see them because they are commenting on society and they're going beyond the shock value, and they're touching on the human condition, and they're really getting into some territory. I guess I would put them in the not far from the kingdom territory. It's like, man, you are really giving some insight into our culture, into our life, not just ranting about this and that. And so guys that do that, who have an edge to them, I got no problem. And some of them, I guess I would put a Chris Rock or somebody like in that kind of category. It's like, it's not what I would do, but man, this guy slices and dices relationships and cultural insights. It's like, man,
one of the
that's
guys,
a poet.
One of the comics that I've always enjoyed, and now that he's gone, I definitely miss his presence in the comedy world, was George Carlin. And George Carlin was a wordsmith, and so every time he used a word, it didn't matter what word it was, it had a purpose, and it was adding value to the funny. It was ultimately bringing the funny. And so he would parse words and just dissect things into such the smallest segments and make things that a church crowd, we have to pray for his soul, but at the end of the day, he was hilarious, but he did it with purpose. And I think that's where, when you're talking about people using something as a crutch, I say quite often that it's the evidence of lazy writing and lazy focus, that they haven't taken the time to actually write good, funny comedies, and now they have to use something to prop up their laziness.
Now you can even flip it though the other way. If in the Christian comedy world, especially, sometimes I think some people don't work hard enough at their art because they get by because they have a testimony that's powerful, or they know how to push the buttons in Christendom, assuming that you're all on my side and way into the Christianese, they can play those things. And to me, that's just as bad. It's like, your art should stand on its own. So work harder and don't go, give me an amen and, isn't that so true? God bless y'all. Like every other joke, like, it's like, you have to like me because I'm a nice person.
Their God bless you all is kind of the Christian F-bomb. So, wow. I didn't realize that those Christian people, they had F-bombs that were just sliding in. They're disguising it a little bit. So I don't know.
So
but
use that.
That does brings a kind of a question that I have for you then is, where do you get your inspiration, and what's your writing process then for what you do as a musical artist? First of all, you're working on the craft of music and the craft of comedy.
Right.
So you're putting in some extra time, and kudos for an old guy like you to do that. And as a fellow old guy, I'm like, wow, stop it! You make me look lazy. But no, in terms of when it comes to then, you're wanting to look for the funny and really bring the funny.
Yeah.
What's kind of your inspiration points, and how do you go about writing for your sets, for your comedy?
Well, I'm not as prolific. I have friends who are a lot more active writers. I kind of go in spurts a little bit, but I try to be a collector of ideas kind of all the time. So I usually have a little notebook with me. I don't have it, but I always got my phone just. Especially if it's a song parody idea or something, or might be for me it can be, all right, I want to do something in that style, or I want to parody that song, that's a good story song, I can flip that, or that's a big hit, I got to do something even if it's 5 seconds of that. So I'm always kind of, my ear's up for musical references of colors I haven't played with before. So that's an ongoing process, as well as then just an observer of life all around. Because the older you are, you tend to have categories. Okay, there's relationship stuff, there's church stuff, there's society trend stuff, political correctness or politics or whatever that, and I got my approach or how I'm going to deal with these categories. So when I see something, that fits in, there's a relational thing. You watch a family and you watch. I was at a coffee shop today, and the parents are ordering food, and there's two sons that are, I don't know, 8, 10 years old maybe, and they got their iPads and they're just. There's nothing around them at all. It's just the iPads are as big as them. They're like, there you go. It's like, okay, that's family today. The little Rockwell paintings would have to have a device in them because they never ever leave the photo.
That's so true.
Right.
So you like, okay, there's something about that. Just funny. These great big honking iPads. It wasn't even just a little phone, because they're probably too young to have phones, but they're not too big to lug the television with them to the coffee shop on a Saturday, so mom and dad can get the order in without all heck breaking loose. So you're just cataloging things. I may have a place. Oh, that goes right here, or I'll write it down, and it's a category. Just something that occurs to you in the midst of it. So the biggest thing, and any advice I would offer to anybody that's working on it, is become a better and better observer, a better noticer, and somehow capture it. If you'll do something, because a lot of times it's just you ad lib. We talking here, and I'd be like, oh, all right, I got to remember this. And man, if I don't write it down, 30 minutes later, that thing you said that was. I don't know what.
It'll go.
So be a noticer and a capturer, and then
that's what I'm talking about. Him showing off like that. He said it takes 30r minutes for him to listen. 3 seconds later, I'm like, you said something.
Oh, no.
Who am I?
No, but even watching our opening act last night, Haas, he's doing some things. It's like, I could, it's just watching people. So when you watch other comedians or listening to music, looking for things, and then after a while you sort of have your own style or trends that like, that's really doable for me, or something will just spur an idea that adds on to a thing. Woody Allen used to talk about writing a joke and then just how far can I take it, either direction, in time or in exaggeration or in beginning, and so as you're watching, sometimes you can go, that fits in my bit right here about what men and women say to each other, or what parents say to kids, or kids say to parents. Like, I had 2 jokes, now I got 3, and you capture it. So it's just being a noticer. So the process, it can start any number of ways. I'm more of a musician who does stand-up as opposed to the reverse. Stand-up's hard for me to do, but if I get the music as a core focus, then I can write an intro or an outro out of it.
Yeah, okay.
That's pretty much what I do. So right now I'm dusting off some older songs, and I'm working up some new things. I got to try some new things out just last night, and those tend to be especially because I do a lot of parody. What I'm trying to especially do with parodies now is, rather than just having them be a word play, it's got to be more into a culture now kind of thing. So even if I'm reaching way back in time for a song, like I wrote a song a while back on the, let's see, was the If I Had a Hammer. And so I wrote a parody years ago to that song, and it was talking about cable TV and different things. Well, I wouldn't sing that song now. It's like cable is so yesterday. You know, it's got to be phone, it's YouTube, or it's this and that. So you update it, and then it became, you know, if college students were singing protest songs like that, they would be asking for their safe places and their this or that. And so, you know, so it's you're making sure, you know, even if the word play, which is often a key to parody, that rhyme that you have in common, substituting a word, you don't want to just do that. You got to zero in on the times so to make sure everything is appropriate, because there's nothing lamer, you know, that you don't have to be young to do comedy, but if you're talking about only something that happened 40 years ago without connecting it to today, then you're just lazy.
Then you're just being an old guy complaining.
Yeah, you know, it's like,
I remember when I was just.
you know, I hate it when my Sony Walkman is like, dude, no. They don't know what a VCR is, let alone, you know, just wishing that they still had one.
I hate it when I pull a muscle with my boombox up on my shoulder.
But I've seen guys do that. You know, they'll make a reference to a company that's gone out of business, and it's like, you know,
that's
well,
true.
You know, does Walmart still have greeters? Like, it's not funny now because there's nobody harassing you there like they all used to. So it's different. So you got to lose that tune, or you got to give a reason that you can still do it. It used to be this, and then you connect it to what is now. So that's a lot of it is with the music. I'm looking for, like, I'm doing some Beatles parodies that I was trying out. And it's like, okay, that music happened a long time ago, but it's culture-wide, it's iconic, but it's got to be into the now and not, you know, making fun of, you know, using wordage that is 20 years old or whatever, you know.
So If I Had a Hammer, the Beatles, you could do something with the Maxwell's Silver Hammer. This is the serial killer song that the Beatles had, which
Yikes!
it's like my son, who is now a comedian out in Portland, Oregon. He brought that to my attention. He would listen to some music. He goes, Dad, you do know this song is about a serial killer. And I was like, okay, that all these years I've listened to it. I didn't think about it that way, but thanks for ruining that song. But so.
Sing along, everybody!
So
take out your knives now. No, don't do that.
So when it comes then, you kind of come up with a song that you want to make the changes and that you've got the creative juices flowing. What's your editing process like? Because one of the things I talk about in when I'm teaching comedy college. For you guys that are kind of learning writing for comedy. I spend a lot of time talking about that editing process. What's the editing process like with when you're writing stuff for song versus, you know, traditional stand-up?
Right.
Because I can imagine you have to at least, you know, you have to create a music sheet to match. And so what song are you going to use and what style are you going to use? Rock, jazz, you know. So that's a little bit more.
What's hard about it is, you know, the audience tells you when you've succeeded. You know, it's with a thing about, you know, if you're just writing, you know, a ballad, a love song or whatever, you know, you do it, everybody claps at the end and it's no big deal. But comedy is the one art form. It demands response. The audience gets to vote. Doesn't matter who you are. You know, you watch Jerry Seinfeld's Comedian, this wonderful documentary that he did. You know, he's Jerry Seinfeld. He still has to go out there on the stage, and some joker from Cleveland gets to tell him, Jerry Seinfeld, what's funny. That's just the way it works. The audience gets their vote, and you can think it's clever as heck, but that's just not, you know. So what's tricky with music is with stand-up, you can kind of know a general direction, get a compass direction, and sort of find the words as you go. With music, I've got to get every word perfect, then have the audience tell me what to keep and what not. Then I've got to erase those tapes, put new words in, and so the process, I try to do everything I possibly can in my own. Maybe have a couple small folks that I'll, a small group that I'll bounce things off of, my wife or a couple, that I really trust. I've got My comedian friend Robert G. Lee at robertglee.com is a great writer. So
Yeah.
Robert will often give me insight. So before I go to the audience standpoint, I've done as much as I can, but then still, you know, they tell me what's working and what's not.
Yeah.
And so that's hard. So the rewriting process is real brutal. But for all comedians, that's just what you have to do. So the process is, you know, do all you can in front of the mirror or to your friend or just in the silence. But ultimately, you got to get it in front of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I find if it's something it's pretty rare that I'll really think, oh, this is going to go, and it's just not there now. I mean, if by the time I've tried to write something, I got a pretty good inkling that it's going to work.
Yeah.
It's rare that it's just like, you know, but it does happen. Just like, well, I guess that was just for me.
Which is actually a line I use sometimes in my show.
Yeah.
When I hit a punchline and the audience doesn't give me the same reaction, I'm like, yeah, some of these jokes are just for me.
Yeah.
You guys, you've had your fill. I haven't had any yet, so this was that was just for me.
Yeah, or sometimes like there's in part of this Beatles medley thing that I'm working on, I got to do it in a couple shows, and there was one song I knew like this is probably pushing too far. And it just that it's not mean-spirited, but it's so politically correct charged that even if I'm in an audience that's sympathizing with my point of view, it might make them uncomfortable just because we're all traumatized now.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it's just like, it's too far. So I got to dial it back, and then I rewrote it, and then I'm rewriting it again, even just after last night's show, like, okay, you know, you got to fight to find an appropriate level of, so that it's serving your show. I don't want to divide. I want everybody, I don't care where they're coming from, I want everybody that walks into the room to be able to enjoy my show. They don't have to be a conservative, a liberal, a whatever. You know, I want a Christian, an atheist.
Right.
My art should be good enough to where anybody. That's my goal. You know, to not just go, oh yeah, I'm the comedian who's only for these people.
Right.
You know, I'm not. You know, I have no problem with the guy that does parodies for Rush Limbaugh, but I'm not aiming at that target. To and everybody else is, let's shame the rest of the world. It's just like, okay, man, nail that, go ahead. That's not what I do. As much as I try to be there so that everybody can, let's all laugh at our own candidates, our own side a little bit. Anyway, that's just, kind of a general overview, but it's a process. The audience gets to tell you, and then you have to listen rather than go, oh, they're idiots, because they think this is too far. It's like, if you're making them uncomfortable, what are you gaining? You're going to just keep jamming that thing, or it's just, just from a pure laughter standpoint, it's just soft. You got to get rid of the soft stuff. You got to listen to the audience. Now, sometimes it's the setup. The goal is good. Got to change the setup. That's just the process. How can you, get it better? Especially with music, a lot of times it's context. What I say before makes the song work. If I'm sloppy about the opening, then they won't like the tune as well, and it won't have the punch.
Nice.
So you talked about early on when you were young life. I think you said.
Yeah.
See.
I used to be a young life leader. Now I'm an old life leader. So times change.
From those days, and you mentioned Ken Davis and Pat Hurley, two giants actually, in kind of the early days of what we called clean comedy.
Yeah, and speaker comedians,
yeah.
I would say, for those guys.
But were those two guys kind of influential in kind of advising you and coaching you early on? I mean, you mentioned Ken specifically, because and you live close to Ken now, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. Ken had an impact. And in fact, we did a Christmas album along with Phil Kagi here. He came on one of my shows, and he was willing to drive down the street and come and do it, and I was very happy.
Awesome. Nice.
Jimi Hendrix was on one of my shows. No.
So Ken was influential, and I would say Pat was a very much a door opener. He helped get me into doing school assemblies where I would do kind of values-oriented assemblies. And so those guys would mentor me, you know, a little bit. I'd say my buddy Robert has been a huge partner. You know, having somebody going through the path with you is really helping. I'd say, you know, any young comic, you build relationships, maybe even with people, you know, who are at your level, so you can grow together. It doesn't always have to be, oh, I got to be friends with, you know, if I'm not best buds with Tim Hawkins, I got no chance. It's like, well, just be kind and be friends, and you know, figure it out. So.
So, looking back, whether it was Ken Davis, Pat Hurley, I know Robert G. Probably never gave you any real good advice. Just kidding, because Robert's going to be rolling through again. He's coming in here in October.
It kind of depends how this ends up, actually, if he's going to show up.
Well, you know, Robert G. Lee is the most hilarious.
Good save.
Looking back, whether it was any of those guys or since then, what's some of the best advice somebody's given to you about your comedy?
Quit.
So you know Thor Ramsey.
No, that's from audiences every night. But I don't listen. I am tone deaf to that. I don't know. I guess I would say Robert just as a role model of somebody that works really hard at the process. Like, don't settle for the soft stuff. I think especially to Christian comics, I would say don't settle for the soft stuff. Listen, record yourself every time if possible, and then go review it and listen and let the audience tell you how you really did. And what often you'll hear is a lot of soft, polite stuff, and then those big laughs, like when you get those, okay, can you get more of those? Can you bring the soft one up, or does that one have to go? And you think you had 5 minutes, maybe you have 2.
Right.
You know, and I'm sorry that that's going to cut your night down, but that's what good comedians do. That's what good club comics do, because otherwise they won't be invited back. They can't do 5 minutes that's too good and 3 soft.
Right.
Because there's some guy that's going to do 5 killer, where the jokes per minute are coming, and when they aim at a target, they hit it.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, I say Robert by example has been encouraging that way, but then you just watch guys, and you watch whatever their pace and their rhythm is. When they aim at a target, they hit it. And so get rid of the soft stuff. I would say to everybody, be just brutally honest with yourself, record yourself, and go over and just see what can I do to raise up the number of laughs or the consistent threshold. And don't let yourself get away with the soft stuff.
That's good. Yes, sir. That's good.
You got any
I'm
questions?
good. I'm not. I mean, I'm soaking it all up. I want to be able to at least apply that too as well. You know, writing is so vital. So it's like the process is so vital to know exactly what'll work, what won't, and seeing that it's the same process for everybody across the board, no matter what level you're in.
Right.
It's the same process. So you can't just hurry up and just think that it's just going to come out and you're done. Oh, I don't even have to plan for it. I'm just going to go up there and wing it. And it's,
and I'll say one thing on just shaping an act, as far as just any kind of advice or instruction, if we're kind of going a little bit in that territory.
Yeah.
It's like you got to look at the arc of your show. Most things end up in 3 acts, and so even if you're doing 12 minutes, it might be 3-4 minute sets. Boom, boom, so that you're taking an audience on a journey rather than rambling. Now, some guys, they just have a rambling side. Stephen Wright, well, it doesn't matter. Walk in, walk out of his show. It's the same rhythm. It's the whole thing. But that's what he does.
Style, right.
You know, it works for him.
Right.
But I like to try to find segments that are distinct, so that you can take people on a journey, whether it's in time or in subject matter. It's relationships, it's things that annoy me, it's, you find categories and then you fix those things. So making it really consistent, and then find a way to get off the stage strong. You can just suck.
Yeah.
And if you have a good finish, then there's a chance they'll bring you back. And one of the best things to end with is if you have a set piece, like Haas last night, ending with a whole rap kind of a thing. He did a lot of stand-up, and then he ends with this very clever musical parody kind of deal. It's energy to get off the stage. And so I'm a real fan of set pieces, whether it's music or a poem or something rhythmic that speaks, that leads to a punch, or a special, they play music over what you do, or something, it's a character, whatever the thing is there something you can do? Because in this age of shrinking attention spans, man, people are checking out and their minds are prone to wander, so you've got to give a different look, a different visual, something. So really, I try to work back, how can I finish strong, or what do I need to do to get to that point? But try to finish strong so you can get off the stage with some punch.
That's good.
That's now I got to start over. Man,
Your whole life and career?
This whole time?
there goes the last 20 years.
You and me both, brother.
Been doing it wrong. I don't know. Oh well, no. Well, Paul, I appreciate you taking some time because I know
My pleasure.
On the day in between shows, you could be kicking back, relaxing. You could be writing new songs and
Seeing the sights of Greenwood.
Oh yeah.
Woo! I almost took the bus tour. And
Well-
I thought, no, I'll just, lay low here.
You could have taken a walk along the river district.
Yeah, the river district.
Yeah, because
Pretty cool, huh?
Greenwood made this big announcement here a while back that they were expanding their river district so that they could add some new liquor licenses. And that was the only way that legally through the
All right, gotcha.
legislature they had to expand their river district. And after we get done with recording this show, I'll take you outside and show you the river district that runs right next to us here. I don't know if you noticed the trickle of water that kind of runs in
I must have missed the mighty Mississippi rolling through here today.
But man, it's a growing district. It is a growing district in Greenwood, and it's a beautiful walk. I think.
Do they ever turn the faucet off to the river?
I hope they don't, because there's big plans to have people come to the river district, and since we're right on the edge of the river, we want people to come. So,
Boy, kind of a floodplain here, really.
man,
Exciting.
well, that's why we're glad we're kind of up on the upper edge of that big river, because
Yes. Build your house on the rock, brother.
I hope Giacomo down there has
ready.
sandbags just in case.
Just in case.
Yeah. But so I appreciate you taking time out of your day to come sit down
My
and
pleasure.
share some ideas with those folks that join us, whether they're watching us on YouTube or listening to us on their podcast formats on the interweb stuff. Any insight is always good, and I know you have added some value to us in terms of before we started. We talked a little bit about some show, ideas for keeping a show going and bringing energy to it,
Transition,
and those types of things. So if somebody's looking to find more out about Paul Aldrich and that, where do people find you? How do they get the? You talked about a new CD that you had with Phil Keggy and Ken Davis. Where do they find those kinds of things? How do they get in touch?
Basically, go to paulaldrich.com. It's ALDRICH, paulaldrich.com. I also produce some shows in Franklin, Tennessee, music and comedy shows, Paul Aldrich and Friends. And so you can get on that mailing list, or just go to my website. I've got a YouTube channel also, Paul Aldrich Comedy. So any of that stuff there, like me on Facebook, all the usual social media stuff. And that's the place to go.
Awesome.
Well, check him out, and
check him out.
you're gonna if you haven't seen any of his stuff, you're gonna find him on the YouTube thing, and you're gonna love it. So check him out, and then send him money.
Yes, you can do
Support.
that any
Support.
time.
Please
Anytime.
support, yes.
and you can send his money to Dennis Tooley. No, just kidding.
Made
So-
out to. Wait a minute.
Anyway, since I don't think I have any more questions or anything stupid to say, and you don't have any questions, do you have anything else you want to add to the good of the body?
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
All
Thanks
right.
for bringing me to your club, and I just wish you guys the best of success here.
Thank you.
Gutty's Comedy Club here, Greenwood, Indiana.
Yes.
Go
yes.
for it. May
check us
this,
out.
you guys just grow and grow and grow. Blessings on you, man.
Thank you.
So we go to I'm a professional talker, by the
That's
way.
what I'm
Go to Gutty'sComedyClub.com. You can find out all the information about upcoming shows. We've got Local Levity with his local comics from the Indianapolis area, and then we've got Andy Beningo coming up,
Yeah,
and
September.
and then we've got as we roll into September and October, we've got some great shows. So check them all out online.
Yep.
Buy your tickets online. You can order your snack packs and all that stuff
Yep.
online.
Yep.
So pretty much go to Gutty'sComedyClub.com and
Let's get everything.
if you get after you do all of that, if you get a chance to check out Paul Aldrich too,
Yeah, check them out.
go
It's
ahead.
real.
And Paul Aldrich and Friends, you can check that out too. I'm good with that.
This guy.
Anyway, I think that pretty much wraps up this episode of the Pops and the Rican show.
Yeah.
And so I'm Pops,
And I'm the Rican.
and this has been the Pops and the Rican show.
Yeah. Deuces.
Deuces. I think that's how the kids do it now.
That's how they do it.
Deuces.
Deuces.
Toca la clave, suena el bongo, hazme un tumbao que el ritmo lo pongo yo.
Pops and the Rican. Pops and the Rican.
Look at this dude. Look at the top of his head. Look at his lips.
Pops and the Rican.